Hello, friends. Welcome back to our Dream Big Nation podcast. I'm so very excited to bring the story of one of my very special new friends that I met in 2020, Miss Wendy Labat, to our tribe here at Dream Big Nation podcast. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate the opportunity to come and chat with you today and your audience.
Absolutely. Wendy and I think we could sit and talk for hours. We have so many, like-minded things in mind. She's a sister in Christ. She's a financial healer. She is doing so many amazing things for her tribe that she serves in her community, her business, her church. And we have a mutual passion for serving women around money and owning their power around money, which is amazing. We are actually fellow authors in the Lemonade Legend series that just launched a couple months back, and also fellow producers with Miss Sandra Evans with ZTV. So we're going to have some fun, Miss Wendy, getting into your story. So, you have a really incredible story of entrepreneurship. You've been doing this for a long time. I have so much that I can learn from you, and that's really the main reason I do this podcast, is so I can learn from my guests. But just give us kind of a thumbnail sketch about your this role of financial healer, because I think it is such a timely topic for what our society is going through right now. A little bit about what you went through, and now how you're serving your community in that capacity.
Okay, well, I'm going to start 37 years ago, in the beginning, not the total beginning, but, back when I started an office equipment company with no business experience, very limited financial resources. And there was a time when there was no social media, no internet, and the only thing you could do with a cell phone was make an expensive phone call. So my clients were corporate clients, big Fortune 500 companies. And in order to get the big contracts, you had to project the right image, which meant, brick and mortar office building, employees, carry inventory, and all the overhead that goes with it. And, I didn't have the business experience, but I, was able to put together that image and get those contracts. But the problem was that my cash flow didn't match the contracts. I was at a point where the corporate America, they want to pay you in 30, 60, and 90 days. And I had to pay my vendors in 10 days. So that wasn't really working out cash flow wise. So it really put me in a position where I was forced to learn how to take control of my finances, make my money work for me, and then think outside the box, where I had to negotiate with my clients to make them, realize, hey, I can't afford to finance your orders. And even though I appreciate the business, it's going to ruin me if I can't get better payment terms. And then also with my vendors, to let them know, my clients, I got these big corporations, these big contracts. In order for me to continue to do business with you, then you're going to need to, give me one, better pricing, more of a quantity discount, and better payment terms. And of course, it was something that showed it was mutually beneficial for all of us, for them to work with me and for me to work with them.
Had to be a
So,
win-win situation.
yeah, so it
Yeah.
worked out pretty good. So, like I said, after a while, it's like, okay, I had to think outside the box to do quite a few things. And it made me realize that you don't have to go with the status quo. Just because someone else's terms is their terms doesn't mean it has to be my terms. And it wasn't me being selfish, but it was me being realistic, that if I was going to grow and develop my company, I had to make some shifts in, like I said, the payment terms, the pricing, and those kind of things. And that worked fine. And I did that business for about 15 years. And then I got into the tax preparation business. And then let's fast forward to 2014, when the Affordable Care Act mandated that everyone have health insurance. So I expanded that tax business to include insurance and financial services. And I didn't want to be a hypocrite. So I was buying all these products that, I was selling to my clients, because I had people say, well, what do you have? Where's your money? And I can honestly say where it was and what I had. And then in 2017, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it was, yeah, it wasn't devastating because I had an inner peace about it. When I read those results, because my doctor didn't even tell me. They just gave me the envelope with the results, and I
That
had to open it up
story,
in the, in
that
the,
story right there that
yeah.
you told me, I could not believe that. And I like give a little more information about that, because that's just a great example of what a great advocate for yourself you are, and how you empower others around being your best advocate too.
Yeah, because I had I was doing my regular mammograms, and this particular one, they said, okay, we need to do a biopsy. So I'm like, okay, I'm the type of person, hey, I want to know what it is, nip it in the bud. If it's something, if it isn't anything, fine, I'll have that confirmation. But it turned out to be something. So the radiologist told me that I would be able to get the results within 3 days. So I wait, that third day, I called up the radiology department to get my results. And they said, well, we can't give them to you. You have to get them from the ordering physician. So I called the doctor's office and said, look, I want to get the results for my, biopsy. And come to find out, they had the results like 2 days before. I mean, they didn't wait to send that over. They did it immediately. I guess when they saw it was something, they sent it right over. And when I called the doctor's office, I said, well, I want to get, my results. And the receptionist said, well, you have to make an appointment. It's like, well, okay, make me an appointment. And she put me on hold for, it seemed like forever, but it's probably maybe, 30 seconds or something. And
Right.
then the office manager came on and she said, well, the doctor doesn't make appointments to discuss results. I said, well, how am I going to get my results? She said, well, you can come by and pick them up. And I'm like, okay, I'll be there in like 10 minutes because it wasn't far from where I lived. So I went there and they handed me the envelope with my results in it. I went to my car, opened it up, and saw that it said carcinoma. I got my undergraduate degree in biology, so I know carcinoma means cancer. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay. And then I got really pissed off, not because of the results, but the fact that they didn't tell me the results. And not only that, I never heard from them for, a whole year. They never followed up or anything. But anyway, I, called a friend of mine who was a breast cancer conqueror, and I'm like, I just got my biopsy results and I got cancer. So who did you see? Give me some numbers. I need to know. I don't know where to go from here because I know I'm not going back in there to talk to these folks. They
Right.
didn't give me the
Right.
courtesy of letting me know what the results were. So she gave me her oncologist number. I called them from my car, told them the situation, and they said, look, fax me over the results. And I told them I'll be home in about 5 minutes. I'll fax them over. And, as soon as I faxed them over, about a few minutes later, they called me up and, said, well, look, we need to see you in the office. So I said, okay, let's set up an appointment. But they asked for my insurance information and all that. And I really had good insurance, but it wasn't one that they took. So I said, well, okay. But she said, give me about 5 more minutes. I'm going to call you back. And sure enough, she called me back and gave me a number to another cancer center saying that, look, they're waiting on your call. They can get you in. Just give them a call. So I gave them a call. And 3 days later, I had an appointment with an oncologist. So I'm like, thank you, Jesus. I knew when I
Yeah.
read it that in my car that it wasn't a death sentence, but I guess I was more pissed off than I was, upset about the results just because, suppose I wasn't the type that would, be, assertive about my own,
Well,
care.
yeah, and let's just pause on that a moment, because, already in just this short couple of minutes we've talked, you've actually given a great example twice now of being your best advocate.
Mhm.
In your business, you realized, hey, if this business is going to be sustainable and grow to the capacity that I want it to be, I'm going to need to lock arms with my vendors and
Mhm.
create a better system of payment. Now, I mean, Wendy, you don't know, I think, how timely this type of conversation is about being our best advocate, because I will tell you, I have two examples in my own life of cancer. One, my best friend who was, diagnosed with ovarian cancer at 42, and my sweet mother, a brain tumor at 74, and two very different experiences I had as a caregiver, because my best friend was like you. She's like, we're on top of this. We're doing this. My sweet mom, who was a nurse, by the way, for 50 years, right? Um, she she was kind of, and maybe it's a generation thing. She was kind of more, let's trust the system. She was, just like kind of, let's wait and let them come to us.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't it interesting, because of what you did, who knows, if you had waited, if something different would have happened. But I think it's a great example of you becoming you really have to become an expert in maybe a field you never wanted to be, probably, right? You
Not to
probably
get
know
the
way more
patient,
about
yeah.
breast cancer than you ever want to
Mhm.
know now. But yeah, so, let's talk about, really, this is kind of when you realize just how important that those products that you had, that you probably didn't even really think about at the time necessarily, other than being a good steward of the service you were providing. I'm going to make sure I know I have what I'm selling and providing to my clients, right? So talk about that, because that's a pretty crucial element to your story.
And one thing I do want to admit, I didn't buy those products because I was looking at my own personal financial
Right.
future. I was looking at it from a business and marketing perspective, because I also had a colleague that was diagnosed probably in about at 2015 with kidney cancer. And I didn't, I sympathized with him, and I was like, God, I hate to hear that, but I'm sure you're going to clock some dollars because, the products and services that we were selling.
Yeah.
And he said, Wendy, I don't even have any of that insurance. He had the minimum health insurance that was mandated by the law. And, I'm like, you're in the business and you don't have the coverage, what's up with that? And now he can't get the coverage. If you don't have it while you're healthy, you sure can't get it while you're sick. The health
Mhm.
insurance, yes, but the life and all the other benefits, like living benefits and cancer policies and those kind of things, you can't get them once you have it. So
Mhm.
that was, just confirmation that I was doing the right thing and I had done the right thing. And then the person that was my, friend, colleague, and mentor, he had been in the insurance business 40 years. And at the end of each meeting, he would say, well, who's your advisor? What are you doing? What kind of advisor are you being to your clients? And that always stuck with me. And that's why I bought all that stuff, is because if I had not been in the business, I honestly don't think I would have had anything more than health insurance,
Right.
because
Right.
just nobody was talking to me about it. But
And they don't, they don't, they're definitely not teaching these fundamental concepts in school.
mhm,
My oldest, we've talked about our kids. My oldest is a junior in college, and he has not learned any of the things that we teach about in even the collegiate level.
mhm,
Yeah. So
yeah.
talk about, I mean, because really the story of the products, you were being a good steward of your business, maybe not knowing how much it would personally impact you, but tell us about that, because it's powerful.
Well, it's gives me just more, I guess, passion about when I'm talking to my clients, because I've had so many people, especially with the health insurance being open again, the open enrollment being available till August. I've had some people like the receptionist at my chiropractor. She said, I said, well, she said, oh, wow, you've got a good plan. You're only paying this for your copay. And I said, yeah, well, what do you have? She said, well, I don't have anything. I haven't had insurance for 5 years. I said, well, why not? I can't afford that stuff. It's like, you can afford it. She said,
Yeah.
well, I haven't been to the doctor in 5 years. I said, that doesn't mean there's nothing wrong with you. It just means you don't know what's going on. So
Right.
I said, well, let me give you a quote and then you decide if you want to. And sure enough, she got the quote. She enrolled. She's been to get her physical and, seeing other specialists. And I don't know what, the results of the physical were or anything like that, but I just know it's a difference in her attitude. And every time I go in, she's like, "Boy, I went to my doctor's appointment today. Boy, I'm sure glad that. And I'm going to give, my son, he needs coverage." So she's referred like 4 people to me just because she got a deal. And it's
Yeah.
not that it was just specifically for her, but it's available to anybody that wants to apply. So
Well, and
there's
I
no,
think
Mhm.
it's actually, remind me, because I need to talk to you about it, because we're
Okay.
about ready to, but it's a good point that I think sometimes it holds people back from starting their own business, or really they might be, doing their own business on the side, but they hang on to this corporate world because the security of benefits are there, right? And let's talk about, there's just as many benefits, in fact I think better, in the solopreneur and entrepreneur space. What do you think about that?
I agree. And that's something I talk about in my signature talk is that, a lot of people are fooled with this corporate coverage. They think, okay, I got corporate health insurance, but they got $10,000 deductibles. And I have to explain to them, your premium is not what you should be concerned about. What you need to be concerned about at first is your deductible. You want to get the
Hmm.
lowest deductible as possible, but yeah, you may have a low premium, but if you got a $10,000 deductible, that means you got to pay that first 10,000 before your insurance even kicks in. And if you can't pay an extra $100 or $200 a month to get a lower deductible, how the heck you gonna come up with $10,000 in case
Yeah.
something happens?
Yeah.
I don't get sick. It's like maybe you don't, but we're in a pandemic, but it doesn't say you won't. So you have
Hmm.
to kind of slap folks in the face with reality. And I just try to educate people that the first thing you look at is your deductible. You want to get the lowest deductible. Then you want to look at your maximum out of pocket, because that's the maximum you'll pay no matter what happens after you hit that threshold. The only thing you're going to pay is your monthly premium. You can have brain surgery and it only costs you your monthly premium. So I tell them,
Hmm.
okay, let's suppose you have $200 a month premium and you got a $10,000 deductible. That means you got to pay $10,000 worth of whatever those medical expenses are before your insurance kicks in. And then let's say your maximum out of pocket is 10,000. When you hit that threshold, yeah, you're fine. But until then, you've got to fork out the money. But let's say you can get a $1,000 deductible for maybe $300 a month, and then maybe a max out of pocket of $2,000. So that means you'll come up with the first, $1,000, and then when you hit the $2,000 mark, you can have whatever.
Yeah.
Won't cost you anything. All your preventive stuff is free. Whether you have a 10,000, $100,000 deductible. Prevent the law, requires that your
You
preventive
get a
things like your
certain number
physical and
of
all that,
visits.
yeah.
Yep.
And then,
Hmm.
colonoscopies and breast mammograms and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
There's
and
no
you
cost.
also had, like, let's talk about the changes in types of insurance too.
Mm,
We're both licensed life and health professionals, and there's, the insurance of old. It's no longer just a death benefit, but it's a
mhm.
living benefit that's
Yes.
available. You actually were able to use that as well, right? Tap into that.
I had the, life with living benefits. I had the first occurrence. I had the cancer. I had everything that I was selling to my clients. And I didn't realize what I had until I started, looking at it, filing those claims and getting those big checks consistently. And like I said, it was awesome because it was tax free. It was, multi six figure, and it was coming. I didn't have to do anything more than just make sure the claims were filed. So it allowed me to have the peace of mind financially and focus on my recovery and not worry about money or medical bills or any of that. And that's really key because a lot of people have health issues because of financial issues, because their financial health is not in order. So that's, it makes a big difference. And I thank the Lord every day that,
Right. Well,
I was
and I
able to
mean,
be obedient.
let's educate people about this, because it's, this was something I found. I remember when I first entered the world of entrepreneurship, this was about 3 years ago, and became a wealth educator, I had tons of insurance,
Mhm.
probably more than I needed. But guess what? I didn't actually know what I had.
Mhm.
When my broker actually sat down with me, like your mentor did many years ago, and showed me what I had, it was crap. It was like, I
Mhm.
mean, some of it was good, but it was nowhere near, we should be constantly upgrading, just like our phone has upgraded.
Mhm.
We should be updating and upgrading our benefits that we have, because the living benefit of today, you can do whatever you want with it. You can pay your
Mhm.
bills, you can go to Paris for a last hurrah, or
Mhm.
go to Mexico for special treatment that's not offered here in the States. I've seen it, used so many amazing ways. So, let's talk about, for example, you and I want to shift a little bit,
Okay.
because we have very deep seated faith. We talked about this when we got to see each other in Arizona,
Mhm.
all that. Remember that breakfast we all
Yeah.
had? And could you
Mhm.
just feel Jesus there and,
Yeah.
with us? And I personally believe that God uses the hands of entrepreneurs to create change and innovation and in our world. And I want to ask you about your faith journey and how you integrate it into your business as well.
Well, my faith journey got me in business. I wanted to be a medical doctor. I didn't take any business courses in college. I took all the science courses. I never even considered, going into business, but I happened into business just because I got tired of the glass ceiling in corporate America, even though I didn't, I worked in the hospitals until I, came back to the States from Sicily. And, I moved to the South. I came, started out in California making major money, working in the hospitals, and then went to Europe with my husband at the time, who was in the military and, was teaching, making major money because you can do that as, I had my MBA at the time. But when I came to Georgia, it was like, the positions I had in the hospital were already taken and the people were grandfathered in. They didn't have the degrees that I had. They, just had years of experience of somebody putting them in that position and because they liked them or they were part of their family or whatever. And, when I branched out, um, because I read an article about a young man in Black Enterprise. I said, I'm gonna check him out, see if I can go work for him because I was fed up with the job I had. And it wasn't hardly paying money, but I had a young daughter to, take care of. So I had to have a job. And, when I started working for him, the potential was there to make the money I was used to making. But when payday came, he was telling us the company was bankrupt and he wasn't going to be able to meet payroll. And I was like, what? I'm spending all this money coming up here, as a commission only sales job. And I'm putting all these miles on my car. And I was like, Lord. But one of the other guys that worked for the company said, look, I'll meet your payroll if you'll come work for me. So of course I went to work for him, and he met our payroll, and then him and his wife are having issues. Next thing I know, he wants to take the company and move to Florida. It's like I just got to Georgia. I'm not moving to Florida. I don't know anybody in Florida. So I talked to my dad and I told him the situation. I said, well, let's start our own company. And he agreed, but my dad was a teacher, real conservative, and he was more the figurehead of the business. And eventually things didn't work out between us because he didn't understand business. He's a conservative teacher and he was doing things the hard way, which was okay because that was his generation, that was his way of accomplishing things, but it wasn't what I needed at the time. So I branched out and did my own thing. Like I said, I didn't really have any money, no major money, but like I said, you learn how to deal with what you got. And it really was just spirit led because at first I wasn't making any money, but I was loving what I was doing and I didn't care about not making any money because I was having fun. I was enjoying it. And eventually it got to the point where things that I needed and the direction that, I needed to go in, like I said, I learned the hard way. It wasn't that I was so spiritually mature at the time, but I was, I had faith in God and I knew that he wasn't going to leave me or forsake me, even though, you want it right now. And he's like, now is not, you're going to work your way to get this.
Sometimes we have to wait on him,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So,
Well, and
that got me
it
there.
seems like you've always known there was something, a greater purpose you were supposed to fulfill. And I
Mhm.
think sometimes there was a guest I had a couple weeks back, Stefan Leary, and he was talking about, sometimes you have a dream that is, it's busted, your dream's busted, but then it really opens the doors to what you're truly purposely
Mhm.
built for, and what your, God's big plan is for you, that's so much bigger than I think all of us even anticipate in our
Yeah.
lives. So it's a continual journey of making sure we pursue that purpose driven life, right?
Because I was so set that my dream was to be a doctor. That was my purpose, because that's the only thing I aimed for. I didn't have a plan B. And then when I didn't get accepted to medical school, I was devastated. Like, hey, what am I going to do? Because like I said, I made money, but it wasn't my goal. It wasn't my dream. And I didn't really enjoy it. I was making the money, but I hated what I was doing. So, I didn't have a plan B. But when I got into business, I was loving it. I wasn't making any money, but it was like, okay, it doesn't matter about the money. I've made money and I was miserable, but now I'm happy and I'm not making money, but the money will come. It wasn't that I
The
didn't have
money will
potential to
come.
make
Yeah.
it. I just knew it was going to come. So, I guess at first you're working for the money, but then once you find your passion, you're working for your passion and the money just follows. So,
Well, and I think it's a matter then of, because I think you and I have seen the same thing. I've seen far too many entrepreneurs that are not generating
mhm.
revenue, and we have to generate to be generous. And they have this, for whatever reason, there's a block between, the successful moneymaker in corporate, and now the generate revenue generator as an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
And wouldn't you agree? I think it's about 90% mindset personally,
Definitely.
10% skill set, right?
For sure, for sure. And I've got the perfect example of that. My neighbor, he's passed away, rest his soul, but he was a hospital doctor. So he was used to making money, but eventually I kept telling him, you need to open your own practice. So eventually he did. And he got his nephew to be his manager, office manager, and really made him a partner, which I thought was very foolish. I said, you don't need a partner like that. Your name is on every financial obligation. He's not doing anything. He wasn't even living up to his duties as being the manager. But he kept saying, "Oh, I'm a medical doctor. I'm not a businessman." It's like, no, you're a businessman because your name is on all those financial documents for the lease, for the vendors, for equipment, for everything. So you're a businessman, whether you want to accept it or not. And I think, and I've seen so many people go from corporate America with the professional expertise in that area, but they don't want to expand to see the big picture of being an entrepreneur, because you have to be able to do more than what you're technically trained for. And a lot of folks, depend on other people. And some of my colleagues used to laugh at me because I used to do my deliveries, I used to answer my own phone. When I first started, I had to do those things because I didn't have the money to hire other folks. But when I did hire them, I knew what they were supposed to do. They had a job description, and if they weren't doing it, I knew it. And that's what I told him. You have to crack the whip for one, and you have to know what the other roles are supposed to be doing. You can't just think because you're a doctor everything's going to flow. You have to make
Either
sure your operation is structured and operating properly. So
it's I find it to be a really common mistake in entrepreneurs. They don't, they don't set up an entity, for example, or
mhm,
they don't get the proper insurance, and they don't separate their, talking about financial wellness, they don't
mhm,
separate their personal and their business, right?
mhm.
I'm the first to admit it. The first 2 years of my business, I was winging it. I was, totally winging it. And then I put my CEO hat on and really realized, okay, I need to think big, act big. Then I'm going to become big, right? Because if
Mhm.
you don't do those first two things, then you're setting yourself up for failure. So,
That's for sure.
have you have you heard of this book? Somebody just recommended this to me. It's called The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Sounds
So,
interesting, but I've
so
never heard of it.
this is crazy.
Mhm.
I'm gonna pick it up, and I'll let you know about it. But it's the story of the original, I think it was 6 or 8 families, like the Rothschilds, the Carnegies, the JP Morgans, and they literally went on a retreat. It's a true story, to Jekyll Island, and they basically built the
Mhm.
system, Federal Reserve, corporate America, the system that
Mhm.
90% of families are in, right? We started as this country of entrepreneurship. Probably 90% of us were entrepreneurs, and now we've kind of, the pendulum has shifted. But it talks about in that book just the fact that we really are trained in schools to be like really factory workers in a sense
Mhm.
in the corporate America world. So for this, for this community, that is we're breaking the chains of corporate America, if you
Mhm.
will. Certainly the great skills we've learned, but bringing those, but leaving the rest, if that
Yeah.
makes sense, right? So,
Mhm.
Wendy, I can't believe we're almost out of time. I want to make
Wow.
sure that I feel like you need to come back and we can talk more.
I'd love
But
to.
let's talk about how our guests can find you, how they can work with you. You have so much to offer people.
Okay, well, they can find me at my email is info@thefinancialcures.com. That's cures with an S. My website, thefinancialcures.com. I'm on social media. I'm not on Twitter, so that's not my
Yeah,
thing. But
I don't have Twitter or TikTok either.
yeah, me either. But Facebook, you can see me or find me at Dr. Wendy Labat or Wendy Labat or The Financial Cures. I have a Facebook group, The Financial Cures, and we provide inspiration and information on a daily basis. Instagram is dr.wendy, Wendy.labat, Labat. LinkedIn, Dr. Wendy Labat, and I have my book, my #1 new release, best-selling book, Diagnose Your Financial Health, that's available on Amazon. If you want an autographed copy, you can go to my website, thefinancialcures.com, and order it there. I have my new course, Overcome the 6 Obstacles to Winning the Money Game. It's a 6-week master class, I should say. And this session is starting on Friday, but I still have a few spots. If people want to, get in, they can text me at 678-361-3656 and put in Lisa, and they'll get the discounted rate of $297. The course normally goes for $997, but since I'm on here today, if they're interested in, getting in, but I will have another course coming up. I guess in June will be my next session.
I love it.
And like I said, we got our Lemonade Stand book too that's out there on Amazon if people want to read both of our stories. And I'm just, I'm about to be a producer. Well, I am a producer and a host of Financial Cures with Dr. Wendy on Zandra ZTV, but I don't know when my air date is going to be just yet.
When your
But
launch date is.
yeah, but
Yeah.
keep a lookout now. I'm
Absolutely.
gonna
Well,
put it out there.
we should have you back when that's getting ready to launch. That'll be
Okay.
fun,
But one more
so.
thing, I want to offer your guests my complimentary guide, The 6 Obstacles to Winning the Money Game, by texting the word guide, GUIDE, to 770-796-4944. That's
Okay.
770-796-4944, the word guide.
And we'll be sure and put that in our show notes too. So
Okay.
people, yeah, absolutely. Okay, brilliant. Well, my friend, thank you so much for joining us. It's been brilliant to hear more about you and my tribe here at the Dream Big Nation. We are so blessed to be part of your day. We hope that the stories that we're bringing are giving you some inspiration in your own life to make that brave leap into entrepreneurship and continue to support you in that journey as well. So blessings to you all in this amazing life journey, and we will see you soon.
All right. Bye.